Look good?
I think so.
All right, I got a silly poem for you.
All right.
All right, so we're here at the UFB with my friend Sonny on the SPP. You know how many episodes we got now?
How many?
More than 50.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome.
And that's the best poem I got for today. Maybe you can improve on that. But we are here with the Smokin' Poetry Podcast with my friend Sonny.
Hi, it's really nice to be here.
Yeah, and we met here at Ultra Flat Black.
We did.
How long has it been? How long? At least a year, right?
At least a year. Maybe a little over a year since I started sharing on stage.
And I have always loved your poetry because it's unique and from the heart, and we're going to maybe hear some of that. But why don't you tell people who don't know you, who don't come to the Ultra Flat like they should, or maybe who are in other parts of the world and are watching this, who are you?
My name is Sonny. I go by Wench Coochie on Instagram. That's my handle. You can find any of my poetry posted there. Yeah, I don't know. I moved here from Arizona over 3 years ago now. And I didn't start sharing poetry out on stage until, like I said, a little over a year ago now. But yeah, if you want to find more of me, you can find me on Instagram at Wench Coochie.
Well, why did you start sharing poetry?
I think it came from a need to be heard, really. I think it came from a place of not being really listened to my whole life. And I've always wrote poetry. I was in poetry clubs in high school. But when I first started going out on stage, it was because an old friend of mine had introduced me to the scene a little bit, I guess, over at Jives originally, actually. And I remember seeing her up on stage, and I was like, I want to do that. You know, I was a theater kid. I want to be up on the stage. I want to share my work. But yeah, I think it definitely came from a place of just wanting to do it for myself and wanting to be heard. So yeah.
How did that change how your life is, how you go about things, being able to do things on stage?
Yeah, I think when I first started out, I was nervous. I mean, I think my stage presence has certainly improved. I've had some people come up and tell me that they appreciate watching me on stage because it's almost effortless, because I'm not trying to put on a show. I'm just laying my heart on the table, and you can either take it or leave it. And so I think a lot of people respect that. I think how it's changed me as a person, I think it's certainly matured me. Am I allowed to curse on this show? No?
Medium. I don't know. It depends on the episode.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. I think I was off my bit a little bit. Yeah, I think I was just trying to fill a gap in myself. And because of that, I was going a little crazy. And then when I started sharing my work, slowly I kind of grew out of that. I don't know. I guess it's like a pair of pants that don't quite fit anymore, you know? Mm-hmm. You just grow out of it. So I think it's definitely matured me, given me a different perspective. I've always liked going out and like meeting new people, and just finding different perspectives always, but
I notice you make friends so easily. You have, we joke, you have like a posse around.
Yeah.
It seems like, and it's different people too. It's not the same posse. Everyone loves you. Why do people love you, and how can I be like you?
Oh goodness. How do I answer this?
Yeah. That was not a fair question, was it?
No, that's a very heavy question, honestly, for me, because I am very kind and very outgoing, But that has all come from a place of being stuck in a hole for a very long time. That comes from a place of neglect and abuse, and it comes from a place of, again, wanting to be heard, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. The way that I have seen it my whole life is I know what the deepest pit feels like. I know what it's like to not want to be on earth. So why would I ever project that onto somebody else? Why would I ever want somebody else to feel that way, right? When I have seen it myself. And so really, it does come from a place of just wanting to make friends with everybody, because I genuinely do believe that everyone deserves a friend. And, you know, maybe that also fills a gap in me where the loneliness, you know, the loneliness hits everybody, right?
Yeah.
But
this time of year.
I think being able to branch out and make friends with everybody has been really important for me. I don't know, just to build my own community. I'm 500 miles away from home, Mike. I'm originally from Arizona. So I was born and raised in Phoenix.
And one thing I was going to say is I appreciate that you don't just like stick to like only like poets, or because there are some people, not to be critical, but some people tend to stick with their kind of niche.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're the comedians with their own other comedians, and poets with their own poets, and so forth. But I've noticed are friends with people who are doing everything.
Yeah.
Musicians, comedians, not artists at all, but you know, which is another thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for being nice to people.
I try my best.
Right. And I appreciate that you go to other people's shows also.
Yeah.
And that's also
I love supporting the artistry of the Springs.
Yeah. Speaking of artistry, we've been talking about these things that have inspired you. Is this maybe a time to maybe do an introduction? I don't know if you have a poem or something you want to do to introduce something about yourself, maybe?
Sure, yeah. You know what? I have the perfect idea. I can share my poem. Yeah, so how do I tell my mom about this? This poem basically propelled me to go out and start sharing my poetry. I was in this weird twilight zone. I was trying to go to sleep. I remember like closing my eyes at midnight and having these weird fever dreams, like twilight dreams, and then waking up exactly an hour later. It was 1:00 in the morning. I remember writing this poem in full and then closing my notes app and going to sleep because I had work early the next day. And this poem I wrote, I think a month after I escaped my ex-husband. And yeah, it is also the poem that I believe helped win me this last poetry slam. I'm very thankful for, by the way. So this is titled, so how do I tell my mom about this? Dragged you to my kitchen and chained you to the floor. Hand me my knife and I'll cut every corner. Soups in the kitchen made with spices and cloves. Chopped up your fingers and threw them in with potatoes. Onion and eyeball and eggplant and tongue. I took 3 of your senses and you took half of my lung. I'll feed you by spoonful. Where's your high chair? Your sippy's around and your teddy's right there. Isn't it just so yummy, Care Bear? It's homemade with love, just like all the Smothers do. Squash and potato, gouged eye soup. There's a buzzing in my ear now. The room's fog has cleared somehow. The horror before my vision, the scene before me, a gory vision. Riddled with bullets and torn muscle to ligament, I've awoken to become a participating attendant. Head rolling, throat sliced deep through tendon, was my beloved. Skinned alive and miraculously still heaving, gorged and chopped, yet somehow still breathing. The buzzing stopped. Oh, my beloved, I knew you'd never leave me. It's time for your dinner, sweetie. Thank you. That was expelled from my brain because my ex-husband threatened to strangle me to death in my sleep. And my brain just unconsciously released that. And because of that, I started sharing poetry on stage less than a few months later.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing the poem, but also thank you for getting out of that relationship.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanted to share about that experience, or you would want other people to know about who are in a bad relationship like that?
Well, I think my life has a funny way of going. I don't think there's any one thing that I could say to my past self or anybody who is in a situation like that would make them leave instantly, right? Because there's a lot of factors that go into that type of stuff. Like, I was married at 19, you know, and I really did think that I loved my ex, right? But I was also coerced into that marriage. It was still my choice, but I also, you know, I'm more mature now. I'm 22 now. I know I'm still just a kid, please, but I'm older than when I got married. You know, I have a little bit more experience than basically being a child, getting married, and then doing what? I don't really know. I don't really know why I married him. I know that I loved Noah at one point or another, because otherwise I wouldn't have married him, right? I wouldn't have been okay with his parents making the ultimatum that I had to marry their son. But yeah, ultimately, it's one of those things you just have to live and learn. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that I'm divinely protected, and I think that my life, there is a meaning and a reason for everything that I've been through. And maybe it's corny, but it did make me stronger. So, yeah, I wouldn't be the same person had Noah not threatened my life. And that's...
Yeah. You also answered a little riddle we had, is how old you are, because you look very young, but you act very mature. So we weren't sure. So
I think Arthur thought that I was like 27 a year ago when I was hanging out with my posse, and he was like, why are you 27 hanging out with all these kids? I'm like, I'm 21 at the time, right? I'm a kid myself. Leave me alone, please. But no, I'm 22. I was born in 2002. My birthday's in April. I'm a Taurus. Yep.
So, what's with the horns? That's kind of like you're kind of known for that, but I'm getting there's something more than a fashion statement behind that, isn't there?
Mike, I'm going to tell you the whole reason I wear them. You're the only person who will have this on video. I don't think I've told anybody this, okay? Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. When I lived with my ex-husband, he had a Nintendo Switch, and I didn't have any gaming devices before this. And he had Animal Crossing on it. And when I first moved here and first started playing on Animal Crossing, it was like September, October. And because of that, one of the first stalls in this video games plaza sold horns. So I wore these horns on my little Animal Crossing character every single day. And I thought it was so cute, and I thought it was so funny. And then I divorced my ex-husband, and I didn't play on his Switch anymore. But I found these horns online. There's a correlation. I found these horns online, and I thought, nobody can tell me what I can do. Nobody can tell me what I can and can't do. I want to wear these horns. I think they're so cute, because it reminded me of my Animal Crossing character. And so, yeah, that's really all it is. There's no devil worship. Oh my goodness, the amount of questions I've been asked. are you a devil worshiper? Do you worship Satan? No, but I certainly don't worship whatever your God is. Anyways, so yeah, the horns, they have no real significance except for the fact that I think they're very cute.
You also tend to have different colorful outfits all the time. It's like a different thing, and that seems to be important to you. Anything you want to say? Talk about that?
Sure, my own sense of style, I suppose. Yeah, I guess that's another thing that I've just grown into. It wasn't necessarily, oh, I'm going to start wearing this because I want to start wearing this. I mean, the horns maybe so, but the rest of my fashion sense definitely came from just a place of wanting to express myself more outwardly. And I don't know, I've been, previous to the last 2 years of my life, so when I was 20, growing up to being 20, I was stuck in a box of conformity of what everyone around me thought that I should be. And that made me literally crazy, made me actually crazy, because all of these external people were telling me, you have to be exactly like this in this way, otherwise you are not deserving of love, you are not deserving of whatever it may be, right? Okay, we could get down to you are not deserving of bare necessities. I was a child, right? Yeah. And so when all of that neglect and abuse comes into play, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was. That's what it comes down to. And being able to present myself exactly how I feel is perfect for me. That it's exactly what I need. I don't feel crazy anymore.
Thank you for that. And I gotta tell you, I still don't know who I am sometimes.
I still don't know who I am sometimes. I'm still trying to figure it out every single day. But that's the beauty of life. One constant of earth is that it will always change. There is no stagnancy of earth. It will always change.
Do you still have a relationship with your parents or family, or is that kind of
I'm actually going to visit Phoenix in December. I'm going to see my grandma and I'm going to see my siblings. I have 8 younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 9 children. I don't really talk with my father or my mother, no. But my grandparents raised me, and I'm very thankful for them all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that you're going to have that. I hope that goes very well for you.
Me too. Thank you.
Shall we transition into something else? You want to read anything else, maybe? You know what I really like is how you play with words. Like how sometimes you'll start with the same letter. Like you have that thing about the awesome ovals and octagons or something. I love how you do that kind of stuff. How you will do different schemes.
Yes, thank you. Did you want me to read in the hallway? I can totally do that.
If there's something like that, that would be great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that one.
In the hallway was originally 2 separate pieces that I combined into one. And the part that you're talking about was the second piece that I ended up mashing. So, yeah.
I always get these great statements during the break, and then we try to remember them. But you had a great statement about
Yes, I had said I love wordplay because it's difficult to paint words. I mean, artists, they have their brush. Musicians, they have their whatever instrument, right? But when it comes to words, we can talk all day long, but mixing and matching and using all these different words and kind of blending them together, it really paints a beautiful picture, and I love that also. So, yeah.
Do you have this memorized?
Yes, I do actually. All right, this is titled In the Hallway. Liquefied thoughts would splatter the walls behind me, but my pen takes those soup thoughts to visualize them on a page. No more am I to you than you to me, but for some unseen reasoning, the seasoning in which you speak is but bitter ginger and tongue in cheek. My teeth have bit down so hard, my words are raw, falling out of my jaw and into your ears. Are you even hearing me? Obstinate obstacles create oblivious objects that meld together to look oblong. Oh, the hours I've ogled over to understand your unamusedness and obscure false prophecies. Refrain from misuse of my mouth. Scream louder, please. The tinnitus is extinguishing the thoughts of horror and fallacy. Once again, a noose slithers along my spine and contracts like the boa would. Crushing, my ribs crack and crumble as boa slimes farther up and around. Grasping at me like negligence, gasping to fill my lungs of short breaths. Thank you.
That is so cool. How did you come up with like your writing? What is like your, like, for example, when you wrote that poem, how did you come up with that?
Well, again, it was two separate poems originally. However, I began writing poetry because I would have these lyrics that would flow through my mind constantly, and unless I wrote them down, I forgot them immediately. And so when I was 16, I think, maybe 17, I think I was driving by the time I started actually really writing everything down. Because I would write down some stuff and, you know, just leave the rest, right? But I kind of had this epiphany that unless I write it down, I'm going to forget it. There's a lot of memory issues in my family, a lot of memory issues in me. And so, yeah, I would always have these lyrics that were poking me, and I just decided to start writing them down. I've had a lot of things come to me in like almost meditative states. A lot of times poetry will hit me while I'm driving, and I think that just comes from the focus of like, you know, being on the road, right? Yeah, it'll also come to me just like from physical moments and then mental thoughts that I've been having. Like I started this one piece, I haven't finished it. It has 2 lines in it. It says, the sweat behind my ears is frozen while the thoughts inside my head rage molten. And that was straight up just because I was cleaning at work and there was a lot of sweat on me and I was pissed off about something going on. So, yeah, I don't know. It really depends. People ask me, they're like, oh, where do you find the inspiration? It just comes from within, and I don't really know how else to explain that.
It seems to be a lot of the darkness within your poetry, which I do appreciate, because instead of pretending it doesn't exist, you're channeling it into something positive.
Yeah.
But is most of your writing from kind of the darkness, does it seem like?
I think, 80 to 90% of it, absolutely. Poetry is my therapist, you know. Anytime that I have a real bad issue with anything going on in my life and it's like making me spiral out, I go straight to my notes app. But I'm also very grateful to be alive. And on the opposite end of that spectrum of a lot of what I talk about tends to be gory, tends to be depressing as shit, tends to be just very heartbreaking at moments. But I do have some poems where I'm talking about, you know, love for a romantic partner or even for myself. I have a poem that talks about how the grass and the wind are lovers, because who else would wait by every day to dance with one another? So, like, I find inspiration in my natural world, right? And I'll still talk about those things, but for a very, very, very long time, I was trying to figure out what was going on with me. I didn't have the space to try and understand my world. I didn't have the space to try and understand, you know, even like loving another person, right? Because I didn't love myself. And I didn't know how to navigate my life. And so, yeah, my poetry, most of it is dark, but that is because I've been through some really heavy stuff. So, yeah. I appreciate that question.
I'm trying to think of how to respond, but in many ways I very much relate because I also come from bad people, and I don't talk to my family, and this time of year, oh god.
Right, yeah. It is hard this time of year, and I almost feel bad in a way. I love my family. I can hold space for my family, even my parents who I don't talk to. You know, sometimes you really can love people from a distance. My mother and my father were neglectful and abusive, to say the least, in their own rights. However, I still look at my childhood and I still see my dad go to work every single day, almost 6 to 7 days a week. It didn't matter if he was selling whatever or if he was doing his day job. He was still the breadwinner, and he tried to bring home for his family. I can respect that. You know, I look at my mom and how many times she beat the crap out of me. But then I look back and I'm like, okay, but through her addiction, she did still try to be a loving parent. And it's like, those things do not excuse what I went through, but I also understand. My parents were teen parents. You know, there's a reason my grandparents raised me. There's a reason that, you know, I have the morals that I do because my grandparents instilled that in me. I think that I'm a very hardworking person just because that's in my blood. You know, my mother, my father, and both my grandparents on both sides, very hardworking people. But, you know, I can look at the good times and I can keep the good times, but I can look at the bad times and realize how that has reverberated throughout my life, you know? Yeah. So.
You are far more mature than me dealing with those things.
It's hard. So, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well, the poetry is part of what helps you with this, obviously. Should we share something else? What else is on your mind?
We could talk about my plans to be a DJ.
Oh, yes.
That's pretty brief.
Let's talk about that. Why don't we talk about your life a little bit? Besides what we see with you being so nice to people and on stage, you have to pay bills and stuff.
Yeah.
And you have other dreams. So why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for starters, I am a housekeeper currently for an assisted living facility. I personally love working with seniors. Mainly, though, I want to work with like privatized adults, basically, because I don't like working with the public at all. I do not like working with the public. You will never see me be a cashier ever again. I'm so sorry to say. Because then I might actually not be a very kind person.
But you're nice with the older folks, which maybe is why you get along with me.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Maybe so. No, but I do. I love working with seniors. I think the older people are so cool. I think it's in the same boat of like how people work with children. Personally, I know that I can't work with other people's kids. It goes back to being the oldest of 8 younger kids. I have changed way too many diapers in my life already. I don't want to raise other people's children. I will raise my children in the future, okay? I love the idea of having kids in my future. But no, I do not have the compassion or the patience to raise other people's kids. Because I see little kids running around the grocery store, I'm like, where's your mom? I'm not nice about it. I will be the auntie who's like, you need to go find your mom right now. Quit running around the grocery store. I don't have the patience for it. Okay, but besides the point, oh my goodness. Yes, I like working with the older folks. Before doing assisted living housekeeping, I did a stint of caregiving. Wasn't really a big fan of that. I think the job just didn't really fit, honestly. But then before that, for 2 years, I worked in addiction recovery. Yes, and I worked in their commercial kitchen. Absolutely loved working in addiction recovery. I had the coolest clients, point blank period. I don't know, like I've dealt with addiction in myself, I've dealt with addiction in my family, and so to be able to wake up every day and like have something soul fulfilling to go to work and help those clients, right? Like it really meant a lot to me. And I, for the most part, really loved working in the kitchen. My boss was not kind to me. My boss, was a raging bee. But that's okay. No, she was an older woman with her own traumas and her own whatever the hell was going on in her life, but I think she was ageist, genuinely. Like, I don't say that lightly. I don't. But she was not nice to me. She didn't like the two women who worked in her kitchen, me and another coworker. Oh, my goodness. But working with the clients, I woke up every single day to go to work for them. Swear to God. But yeah, now I'm working assisted living. I work for a pretty tiny facility. It's not so bad. Some people are like, oh, you clean toilets? That must be the worst in the world. I love it. I looked for this job for like the last 8 months of the year. So I'm glad that I found it. But to switch notes, some goals of mine outside of my work, I'm actually working on being a DJ. I have had this dream, this goal for as long as I can remember, basically. I haven't always wanted to be a DJ, but I knew that I always wanted to work with music. Music is super important to me. And yeah, my stage name, I'm sorry.
What's your DJ name?
I'm sorry if this is inappropriate. It's gonna be DJ Cunty and Sugar Tits. My deck's name is Sugar Tits. But it's gonna be spelled with like numbers and letters and stuff. I plan on personifying my deck into like a little character. And then, yeah, my stage name is DJ Cunty. Oh my goodness, you're gonna get some crazy lore. My real name is Kirsten, but nobody calls me that. Don't call me Kirsten.
Are we telling this to the world? Well, the world, like the two or three people who watch this.
You're good. Yeah, my real name is Kirsten, and one of my friends, Evie, all of my friends know me as Sunny. Everyone knows me as Sunny. She combined Kirsten and Sunny and made it Cunty. And now my very personal friend group calls me Cunty. That's just like my nickname. I love it. I think it's so cute. But yeah, I'm going to be DJ Cunty. And I have a deck. I have a DJ 202, Rolando Serato. I'm working on Serato right now. I have a little practice playlist. It's called Moldy Test Tube, and the bio of it is called, what is it? The most vile homunculus womankind has ever seen, which I think is silly. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, I'm not necessarily confident enough to get up on stage with my deck just yet, but it is coming soon. I'm hoping that I'll actually be like outperforming by next summer. So I do have goals. I think my main goal that I really want to reach, obviously there's baby steps, but my high point goal is DJing at Meow Wolf. I think that would be really, really cool. So
you got the look for it, for sure.
Thank you.
Well, there are some happy stuff that you like to write about too.
Indeed.
And have you done the memorization a little bit more? Is that like a thing you've been working on?
Honestly, no. The memorization is not something that I've been working on recently. I think in my peak of going out, and I don't want this to mess up your audio.
Oh. Yeah.
In the peak of me going out on stage and sharing, that really helped me memorize it just because I was like speaking it so often. And there are definitely some poems that I probably have memorized. Oh goodness, I don't know why I just lost my train of thought.
I think I had overly broad question, maybe.
Oh, no, you're good, you're good. Yeah, I had some poems memorized just because I was sharing them so frequently. It is something that I want to kind of get back into. Like I said previously, I was a theater kid, so memorizing lines is no issue for me. And then especially because it's my own work, it's fairly easy in my opinion, but I have not memorized anything of recent, so.
Well, you have recently become a slam champion.
This is true.
That was fun.
That was pretty cool.
Over it. I guess it's a good time to talk about the Colorado Springs Poetry Slam
Right.
at Ultra Flat Black right here, first Friday every month. And you're the defending champion right now, aren't you?
I guess so. I don't even know how I won, quite honestly.
I think you should have won a long time ago. But I'm glad you did.
And that's what some people were saying, but I think it just depends on like the mood of the room, you know, because I've been here for a lot of the poetry slams. There was a stint where I didn't come around just because I was dealing with my own stuff. But yeah, this was the first time I'd ever made it past the second round. Or ever past the first round, I mean. So I'd always been booted off the first round. And when I came here on, I think it was on November 2nd, right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think the Poetry Slam was on the 2nd. When I came here that night, it was just for me. It was just for me to get up and share my poetry. And I told Sarah Garlick, because she asked me for a ride home that night. I told her, I was like, as soon as I see the 6s and 7s across the board, I'm going home. Like, I've got other stuff I want to do tonight. Yeah. And then I got like 9s and 10s across the board, and I was like, what? Okay, I guess I'm not going home. But yeah.
Is there something different you were going to grace us with, you were thinking of?
Yes, this was the third poem that I actually shared at the Poetry Slam, and it is titled Seppuku. And if you are unaware of what seppuku is, it is an old swordsman Japanese tradition of basically falling on your blade to bring honor to what would be considered a dishonorable death. So
ritual suicide.
Exactly, it is ritual suicide. So this is titled Seppuku. If the fruits of life are mine for the picking, then may divine consciousness let me devour the apple. Allow me to savor the knowledge and dwell on the taste of lessons learned. I plead with the gods above to make me ripe of humanity. Give me the knowledge to carry on in my life, even through the most horrific storms and the blizzards of snow. Keep me in sight of the horizon when my boat's been lost to sea by the hard winds, so that I may once again savor the orange of what it means to be alive back on the shore. May I continue to serve my own temple with the fruits of healing, with the tastes of love. Allow me to dine on peaches with sips from fine wine of experiences and thoughts, problems, lies, and company. May it be divine word that I share in the fruits of presence with those around me. And let me forgive myself of the fruit turned rotten. For even those that molded were sent to degrade to dirt so that I could grow something fresh from the soil. That poem I wrote in my driveway after a really long day of work. Ooh. I hope you caught that. Oh my goodness. After a really long day of work, and I was just feeling incredibly grateful for my life and everything that I've built for myself. And yeah, the title of the poem, I like to make the titles of my poetry kind of like a line of poetry themselves. And it doesn't always have to relate to the poem at all. Like, the whole point of the poem is being incredibly grateful for everything around me, right? But the title of the poem is Ritual Suicide, like you said.
Yeah, it doesn't. I thought we were going to do happy, and then you start.
It is happy. Stop it.
Coming out of it, but you start out with the title, and I'm like, oh god.
I don't really talk about happy stuff. I don't know.
But I do appreciate that, because I mean, I know I'm drawn more to the darkness, I guess.
Yeah,
And maybe I'm
I
just
get it.
jealous of the people with their happy, love you.
Hey,
poems.
same. Me too, my friend.
But I'm drawn to this type of stuff you do, and the different kinds of analogies, not the kind of you use some different kind of words, like how your first poem with the food. I mean, that is so cool, and it's like
Thank you.
You want to think about it. It's like every time I listen to your poem, even if I've heard it 10 times, I always think about those words, and I'm like, what does that mean? Because you like obviously you do it so it can be subject to the listener's interpretation, but I suspect you have some real things behind each of these.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I forgot what you called the name of it. What's the first?
The first one is titled "Yeah." So how do I tell my mom about?
How do I tell my mom? That's right.
Yes.
And it's like, so how, when you're using all these different food items, I mean, how did you come up with that? What was your thought process?
For that first poem, like I said, I woke up out of a twilight daze. I don't really even remember typing it. I remember waking up out of a twilight zone and writing that in full, and then I went to sleep and I didn't look at it until the next day. And actually, I would like to shout out my old coworker Corey. He is such a sweetheart. He was literally my work dad. And he was also a huge inspiration for why I started going out and sharing poetry. Because I think I started sharing poetry around March of 23, but I wrote that in November of 22. And so during that, 5 months, I had been really writing everything down because I was getting divorced and I was living on my own for the first time. And so I was just dealing with all of this stuff. And every couple of days I would come to work and I'd talk with Corey and I would share a new poem with him. And I remember I shared that with him and he almost freaked out. He had to walk away for a second and then he came back. He was like, dude, that's phenomenal. That is absolutely amazing. And so Corey, my old coworker, he was a really big inspiration for me to start sharing. But I don't know, in terms of just writing it down, it just hits me. And I really don't know how else to describe that.
No, that part I understand. I don't necessarily say I have to write a poem today. Something happens.
Yeah.
And, here's some words.
Mm-hmm.
About how many poems have you written?
I don't know. Probably hundreds.
Wow.
Hundreds. I mean, I wish I could see how many numbers I have in...
I'm already shocked. That's a lot.
I mean, if you want to see my notes app, this is just my notes app from since I got this phone.
Yeah.
And it scrolls all the way up, right? And then I've always typed into my notes app since I was a kid. I don't know, I would just write little blurbs out, I guess. I would write down on paper a little more frequently when I was in high school, but I didn't really know how to save any of my poetry. And so anytime a phone of mine would break, all of that poetry was lost. Anything that was on the phone in the notes app, it was gone. So if I've been through 6 or 7 phones in my lifetime, you can only imagine. I don't know, I've probably wrote thousands of poems at this point. I've never even thought about it.
Do you come up with short things and save them and later put things together a lot?
I do sometimes, yes. I'll definitely write down little lines of poetry and then save it and then come back to it and either add on to it or I'll mix it into something else that I was working on. So yeah, it definitely depends, but I definitely have had my fair share of doing that.
You must be just writing all the time.
Not so much recently, honestly. I don't think I'm in survivor mode anymore. I think I actually feel safe enough to live life. And because of that, the writing has definitely slowed.
Now, a lot of people in our community, including myself, we're all promoting something. We're all trying to buy this, do this. You're not promoting anything. No. You're just you.
Yeah.
Are you going to do anything? Write a book or publish anything? And you have more than enough material if you wanted to.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people ask me if I'm going to publish any of my work, and quite frankly, that just doesn't interest me. I had a conversation probably almost a year ago at this point with a comedian of the Springs, and we were just chatting, and he was like, "Oh, you have all this poetry, like when are you going to publish a book?" And I told him straight up, I was like, "I really don't care about that. I'm actually studying to be a DJ right now." And so, yeah, if I do publish anything, it'll be like a zine. It'll be handmade completely. It won't be anything that I publish.
What is that? Like a what?
A zine?
What does that mean?
Okay, yeah. So there's like a whole community. It's been a thing for a very long time at this point. It's basically just handmade magazines. And you can put whatever you want to in there. I've seen a zine where it's just like spare fabric. I've seen zines where it is people's poetry. I've seen zines where it's like somebody wrote like a whole mini chapter, a whole book. I have this idea for a zine called the laundry zine, because you see all the magazines at the laundromat, right? Yeah. And I'm always at the laundromat. I got to keep up on all of my clothes, okay?
You do have a lot to keep up with.
I do have a lot of freaking clothes, holy cow. And all of my stuff comes from Goodwill, too, so...
Really?
Yeah.
Because you are so stylish.
Yeah, actually...
And, I mean, I'm just grandpa, what do I know? But
I'm not even kidding. My shoes, my skirt, my top, and this, I think except for my fishnets and my underwear, Goodwill. Goodness. But... I tangented so hard. I'm so sorry, Mike.
That's a wonderful... You know what? That's good information for people. And actually, frankly, a lot of people are all into, I got to spend money. I got to have designer this. And
I think it circles back around to you being like, you're just you. You're not trying to promote anything. No, I'm really not. I'm just living my life. I'm just here to live life. I am an observer of the universe. I just want to play me. I don't want to be anybody else. I don't want to try to be anybody else. Yeah. I just want to do me. So.
And frankly, it's so much cooler to take something and make it something cool than to just buy it when someone else made it cool and just put it on.
Right.
And you do it all.
Thank you.
So what else do we want to tell the world other than, anything else we want to tell the world?
I think I have one more poem for y'all.
Okay, why don't we do that? We'll do a little closeout.
All right.
And what are we going to talk about here?
This is a newer-ish poem. Again, my writing has really slowed down, so I just haven't been doing it as much. I think I wrote this maybe a month ago, maybe 2. It's called, "I'll Destroy You to Remake You in My Image." Am I one more single night, single-handedly making love to myself with the fevers of the single night before? To lust is to sin, is to betray my mind, is to betray my body once more. Lustrous is mica, as is diamond. Illustrate for me the person you are. Write your signature on all my hands and fingers. Pour into me and mark your words among my lips, just as you've marked your teeth upon my skin. Thank you. That poem is about my own plight with dating. It is. I don't trust very much. I've been hurt a lot. Yeah. And I mean, we could talk about my ex-husband and you would know that right off the bat, right? But when it comes to romantic partners, I don't really give myself to anybody. And so on the off chance that like I really connect with somebody and I actually really like them and I'd like for things to go farther, whatever, And then I fall into this trap of, excuse my language, but so, and now there's just nothing. Like, you just kind of tossed me to the side because I am more than my body, right? And I think what that poem comes down to is people look at me like I'm a fantasy. I have had many people look at me like I am just an obtainable piece of meat. And that is, I've worked very hard to be my own person, to provide for myself, okay, right? And so when all of these suitors come along and I pick and pick and pick and pick and I'm still single, it is because nobody has met my needs, you know? And so this poem is talking about how I really liked this guy and I gave myself to him, and he once again picked me up and put me to the side and didn't care, right? Even though I thought he did. And so the poem is meant to be betraying myself because I once again thought that it would be something else, I suppose. But yes, I have many friends and many suitors, and I don't want any of these suitors, but I do want many friends, so always be my friend, because I'm always willing to be everybody's friend. So.
Well, we do have to ask the big question. What's the actual meaning of the Instagram handle?
Wench Coochie! Okay. The actual meaning of wench coochie, it's gonna be just as silly as my horns, Mike. It was a conversation with my ex-husband. I don't even remember what the conversation entailed, but we were being silly and we were just like spouting off random words, and wench coochie was born from that conversation. My Instagram handle used to be Wizard BITCH, because I thought that was funny. It mostly just comes around to me being myself, and I'm going to express myself however I see fit. And I think it's really dumb to put yourself in a box, because you're gonna outgrow the box no matter what. And you can either try to fit and cramp yourself in that box, or you could just step outside of the box. And people might hate you for stepping outside of the box. I know I've had my fair share of people be like, well, why do you do this? Because it makes me happy. Because I want to. It doesn't matter if you don't like it, right? I've had people try to tell me that I should change my username because it's not family friendly. I don't care. Then don't book me for a family friendly show. I'm not family friendly, okay? Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Wench Coochie comes from just a random conversation with my ex, and I think the only reason I kept it is because I thought it was super silly, and I kind of just wanted to say, F you. You can't take anything from me, you know? Yeah. So that's where it comes from.
Well, thank you for not staying in a box.
Right?
And for being yourself. And thank you for sharing and coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching.
So thank you. Shall we do the goodbye handshake here?
A handshake.
All right. See you next time on Smokin' Poetry Podcast. And thank you to the Ultra Flat Black.
Woohoo!